I wanted to offer some further reflections on the lack of being at the heart of INFJ life, perhaps at the heart of any human life, except that INFJs are particularly sensitive to it. So sensitive to it that it plays an even more acute and important role in the narrative arc that they build around their existence. And it presents opportunities and it presents challenges. The two always come together. I was reflecting on the spiritualized INFJ, which is the name I give to the individuated INFJ if we were to borrow from Jung's vocabulary. Spiritualized INFJ is an INFJ who has managed to transcend severance, right? Who has made alienation his or her own, wear it on his or her own sleeves, and uses it as a power for good. The main difference between the secure and the spiritualized INFJs, two INFJs who look quite similar on the surface from the outside. Often I say that the secure INFJ has actually never experienced severance. Alienation, yes, but without severance or dissevered alienation. Whereas, or unsevered alienation. Whereas the spiritualized INFJ very much experiences severance, but transcends it productively through a life project. I like to talk about this notion of the life project as the realization of an NI worldview in the world, not just in your head. Okay? Now, all this sounds kind of abstract, and one of the reasons why it sounds abstract is because it is not a very easy to put into words process, because it happens to a significant degree at the level of the unconscious. But I think that using some of the metaphors from my video on the INFJ and the lack of being, which has been popular with a good few of you, and this warms my heart, I think I can throw some more light on the spiritualized INFJ and what distinguishes the spiritualized INFJ from the more secure kinds of INFJ. If you like, we all have lack of being as part of our existence, but not everybody has the same holes. The holes are in the self are qualitatively different. They're also quantitatively different. Some people have bigger holes than others, bigger and more frightening holes to deal with than others. And in addition to that, like I was saying in relation to the INFJ, we each have our own peculiar kind of sensitivity towards the whole and the experience of having this gap in ourselves. Some people deal with it fairly well. Other people think they deal with it well because they can deny well or they can repress well. That's not INFJs, that's more extrovert types. And then you have people, and I think INFJs fall into this, who can neither deny nor repress it well, but who are sensitive to it. They are the poets, they are the creators of the metaphors. They speak the whole in being because this is their own way of tending to that sacred wound. But even within INFJ populations, there are differences in the quality and the quantity. So the whole is not always the same. And certainly the more insecure, quote unquote, existentially insecure types of INFJ will have bigger holes in themselves than the more secure ones. That makes perfect sense, because insecurity, which is an ontological kind of insecurity, as I was saying previously, stems from incompleteness. If you're a perfect circle, you're complete, you're not insecure. No one's a perfect circle, but there are people who are closer to being circles than others. And then there's INFJs who are closer to being dotted circles than others. And the more you're a dotted circle, the further you are from the secure INFJ. So the more likely you are going to be either tending toward compliance, adaptive submission, solipsism, withdrawal, or spiritualization. Because again, you should never forget, the spiritualized INFJ is a quintessentially temporal and historical kind of INFJ. It's not an INFJ that can be understood at all as an isolated point in time. It's not an INFJ that can be understood in essentialistic terms. You have to understand this INFJ, and it's a blueprint for any INFJ, but in this case it's the starkest example of the INFJ as a temporal being. One is not a spiritualized INFJ. One is not born one becomes, one possibly becomes a spiritualized INFJ. Right? And in this process of becoming spiritualized, which I'm sure many of you are engaged in, each at your own level, spiritualization is the destination. The journey of individuation towards it is the process that gives meaning. It's also the life project that is giving flesh. Okay? Concreteness in external reality to your NI worldview, and the ability to translate the worldview into flesh is part of what it means to transcend severance. So it doesn't have to be that abstract, even though I speak about it in often quite abstract terms. Now, in this process of individuation, the spiritualized INFJ does not patch up their hole, because that cannot be patched. You need to understand the ontological incompleteness. The gap is constant. It's not going to change. It is smaller in the case of the secure INFJs. It's there. The qualitative difference is clear, but I don't think I can quite capture it yet in my own research and thinking. We'll get there eventually. What I can say is that in terms of size, in terms of quantitative comparison, the whole is smaller in the case of the secure INFJ, which is why they're much more easily content with what they do and where they stand. Another way to put it is to say why they can more easily align with their ego ideal and experience a sense of comfort, existential comfort. Also, less of an impulse toward ambitious, world-changing activities. It's just the tension within them is not such that it creates this sometimes quite powerful, propelling movement forward. But it exists in the case of the spiritualized INFJ. The difference between the spiritualized INFJ and the either compliant or solipsistic INFJ that the spiritualized INFJ used to be, again, it's a temporal thing, is that the spiritualized INFJ knows what to do to tend the sacred wound. And what they do is not narcissistic self-retreat, which is essentially what ends up dominating the life of the compliant or the solipsist, albeit in different ways, right? Either through social role play or through social withdrawal. In both cases, there is a reticence to reach out to the other, as a complete and full object. The spiritualized INFJ reaches out to the other. That's what it means to have a life project. It's always, at some level, a social life project, and others are invited into it. But that doesn't mean the whole gets smaller. And in fact, it's precisely because it remains what it is that the spiritualized INFJ remains ever active in their quest to bring meaning to other people in the lives of other people. In the process, of course, they bring themselves to meaning to themselves as well, because meaning is a collectively shared experience. So a spiritualized INFJ never stops bringing meaning. There might be lots of different ways of achieving that, lots of different ways of materializing that in the external world, but there's always that quest, there's always that thirst. And the thirst comes from the fact that at the very basis, the lack is still there. But it's a lack that's productive, and it is a lack that is the condition of meaning. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video, guys. I hope to see you soon in my next video. Don't forget in the meantime that you can get my latest book, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, which is a book that's all about some of the topics I've discussed here. INFJs often find the modern world hostile, but this book argues that this feeling, although genuine, this certainly does not mean that INFJs should embrace avoidance and fear of the external world, but find the right balance between authenticity as an INFJ experience and a person, and adaptation, because that's also crucial. It sounds like a daunting task to a lot of people, but this book really will help you to figure out a way. So get the book at the link below, the first link, and the prequel, the first book, The Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality, which is the deepest investigation into the INFJ mind, what it means to be an INFJ, and what it is like to think like an INFJ. There's no book that goes deeper, so if you're curious about this, check the link below as well, and the reviews. It's helped a lot of people like The Infinite Soul. And as usual, guys, don't forget that the lifeblood of my channel is the Patreon page. You can support me on Patreon for less than $4 a month, and you get some really cool perks like access to a Discord server where I'm there, and a lot of other cool INFJs and non-INFJs alike are there as well. We're all seekers and we're creating a great community. You get access to bonus videos every 2 weeks where I go in depth about a particular topic of your choosing, and other perks too. So you help me a lot to keep going with this channel, massively, I must not exaggerate it. And you get some cool perks, so hopefully see you there. The link to my Patreon is below as well. Talk to you soon, guys. Take care.